Ladies and gentlemen, most people walk around like prisoners not because of walls or bars, but because of the chains of disbelief in their minds. The first time they hear the word no, something inside them begins to die. Maybe it was a parent who told them their dreams were unrealistic, or a teacher who made them feel small for wanting more. Maybe it was a failed attempt that ended in humiliation, or a betrayal that crushed their trust. Whatever the source, the power of that no sinks deep into their subconscious and begins to mold their identity. They start playing small. They lower their expectations. They accept the idea that success is reserved for others, those who are smarter, richer, better looking, better connected. And slowly they stop even trying. But here's the truth that most people never wake up to. Every no you've heard, every rejection, every failure, it was never about your capability. It was about perception. Belief is the fuel of all achievement, and once that belief is fractured, everything else begins to crumble. That's why the most powerful thing a human being can do is believe, not hope, not wish, not daydream. But believe with complete certainty that they can win, no matter what the circumstances look like. When you believe you can win, you activate parts of yourself that remain dormant in disbelief. You start to think differently, move differently, speak differently. You begin to carry yourself with a certainty that others can feel. And the universe responds to certainty. You attract opportunity, people, and situations that align with your belief. Not because the world magically changes, but because you do. You start showing up like someone who expects to win. And when you show up like that consistently, results begin to follow. Think about this. Every person who has achieved anything massive started with belief. Not one of them saw the full path before they began. They weren't sure of the details, the timing, or the how. But they had a deep, burning belief that they would figure it out. And that belief became a magnet for the resources, connections, and clarity they needed along the way. If they had waited for proof before they believed, they would still be waiting. Most people are stuck in that cycle, waiting for evidence before they commit. But life doesn't work that way. You must commit first, believe first. The evidence comes second. This is why belief is more powerful than any no. When someone tells you no, what they're really doing is projecting their limitations onto you. They are revealing what they believe about themselves, not what is true about you. If someone says that can't be done, it simply means they don't know how to do it. It doesn't mean it's impossible. If someone tells you you're not cut out for this, they are speaking from their own fear, not from your destiny. The danger comes when you start internalizing their doubt as your truth. When you allow their disbelief to become your belief, you begin to live a life that doesn't belong to you. Belief is not arrogance. It is not ignoring reality. It is about choosing which reality you want to build. You can either build your life based on rejection, fear, and insecurity, or you can build it on vision, faith, and conviction. It's a choice, and most people never realize they even have that choice. They've been so conditioned by years of no, by a society that punishes failure and rewards conformity, that they assume belief is something you earn. But it's not. Belief is something you claim, you declare it, you assert it, even when nothing around you supports it. It's easy to believe when everything is going right, when people are cheering you on, when success feels within reach. But that's not real belief. Real belief is forged in the dark. Real belief is when you're broke, alone, humiliated, and exhausted, but you still wake up and take the next step. Real belief is when you lose everything, and instead of giving up, you rebuild with even more fire. Real belief is when you have no audience, no applause, and no promise, but you act as if you've already won. Because deep down you know you were never asking for permission. You were claiming what was already yours. You weren't born with limits, you were born with potential, but potential means nothing without belief. You can have all the talent, all the skill, all the knowledge in the world. But if you don't believe in yourself, you'll sabotage every opportunity that comes your way. You'll play it safe. You'll hesitate when you should act. You'll talk yourself out of things that could change your life. And all because someone told you no years ago and you never unlearned it. Belief is not just mindset. It's a weapon, it's armor. It's the tool you use to rewrite your story. When you pick it up, you become dangerous to the system that wants you small. You become a threat to mediocrity. You become the exception. Because belief is rare, most people settle. Most people conform. Most people would rather be accepted by the crowd than risk standing alone in belief. But the ones who win, the ones who change their lives, their families' lives, the world, they are the ones who stood tall in the face of no and said, "Watch me. You are the only architect of your destiny. No one is coming to rescue you. No one is responsible for building the life you dream of except you." This is the raw truth most people avoid, because taking full responsibility means you can no longer blame anyone else. You can't point fingers at your parents, your past, your circumstances, your boss, your friends, or the economy. The moment you decide to take full ownership of your life, you step into your true power. You realize that you, and only you, determine where you go from here. You either rise or fall by the choices you make, the standards you hold, and the discipline you apply. People waste years waiting for the perfect timing, waiting for support, waiting for someone to believe in them. But here's the truth. No one is going to believe in you more than you believe in yourself. And if you're waiting for a sign, for a breakthrough, for something external to validate your path, you've already lost the game. Your destiny isn't something that appears magically one day. It's something you construct through vision, repetition, obsession, and relentless execution. You create it from nothing, you imagine it in your mind, and then grind until it becomes real. That's what it means to be an architect. You don't just wish for it. You plan, you draw, you build, you revise, and you work on it every day whether you feel like it or not. Every day you wake up, you're either designing your future or destroying it. Every decision you make is a blueprint being laid down. When you choose discipline over comfort, you lay the foundation for strength. When you choose focus over distraction, you reinforce the structure. When you choose persistence over quitting, you build walls that nothing can tear down. But when you give in to laziness, doubt, fear, or negativity, you crack the foundation. The problem is most people don't realize they're constructing something every single day, whether they're conscious of it or not. They think drifting is harmless, but drifting is dangerous because it builds a life you never wanted, and by the time you realize it, you're trapped in it. The world will try to design your life for you. From the time you're born, you're told what to do, how to think, who to be. You're fed a script: go to school, get a job, stay quiet, fit in, don't take risks, don't question anything. And most people follow that script because it's safe, it's comfortable, it's approved, but comfort never leads to greatness. Safety never leads to fulfillment. You weren't born to follow a script written by someone else, you were born to write your own. And the moment you stop asking for permission to live on your terms is the moment your destiny begins to take shape. You must become intentional with your life. You can't afford to move through the world on autopilot. If you don't choose your direction, life will choose it for you. And it will never choose anything great. It will give you average, it will give you survival. It will give you just enough to stay alive, but never enough to feel alive. So you have to rise every day and declare, "This is what I want, and I'm willing to do what it takes to get it." And then you move decisively, unapologetically, and obsessively. That's how destinies are created, and yes, you will be misunderstood, you will be doubted, people will laugh at you, criticize you, and call you crazy. Let them. They don't understand your vision because it's not theirs. It was given to you, not them. Stop expecting people who have given up on their dreams to support yours. Stop shrinking your vision so it fits inside their limited minds. Your life is not a group project. It is a personal mission, and if you stay focused, if you keep building, if you keep showing up when it's hard, eventually the results will speak so loudly that you won't need to explain anything. The process of becoming who you're meant to be is not pretty. It's messy, it's lonely, it's painful. But it's necessary. You will fail, you will face resistance, you will question everything, but the one thing you must never do is quit. The pain of growth is temporary, the pain of regret lasts forever. You are either suffering through the discipline of building your destiny, or suffering through the consequences of letting it slip away. One leads to power, the other leads to paralysis. You don't need to have it all figured out right now. You just need to start. You need to decide what kind of life you want and move toward it, like your life depends on it, because it does. Every second you hesitate is a second wasted. Every excuse is a brick you could have laid. Every distraction is a detour you didn't need. Your future self is watching you right now, silently hoping that you choose discipline over comfort, purpose over fear, and creation over consumption. Because your future isn't something waiting in the distance. It's being built, one choice at a time, right now, by you. Negative feelings are not the enemy, they are raw, untapped energy. Most people try to suppress them, numb them, or run from them. They think feeling angry, afraid, anxious, or frustrated is a sign of weakness or instability. But those emotions, if understood and directed, can become some of the most powerful tools for transformation. You were never meant to live a numb, flat, neutral life. The emotional spectrum you experience is evidence that you are alive, aware, and capable of growth. The problem isn't the feeling itself, it's what you do with it. Fear can freeze you or fuel you. Anger can destroy or drive. Sadness can paralyze or sharpen. Every negative emotion carries with it a choice. Become a prisoner to it or use it as a weapon. When you're in pain, it means something in your life is misaligned with who you are or who you want to be. That discomfort is trying to wake you up, but instead of listening, most people try to silence the alarm. They distract themselves with entertainment, social media, food, substances, relationships, anything to avoid feeling. But you can't heal what you don't face, and you can't overcome what you keep avoiding. The moment you stop resisting those negative emotions and start understanding them is the moment you begin to take back control. Pain becomes purpose, fear becomes focus, and sadness becomes fuel, but that shift doesn't happen automatically. It takes brutal self-honesty, emotional discipline, and the willingness to face what's uncomfortable. Every feeling you have is energy in motion. Think of it like electricity. Electricity can light up a city or burn it to the ground. It all depends on how you channel it. If you let fear sit idle in your mind, it breeds anxiety, overthinking, procrastination, and doubt. But if you convert fear into focus, it sharpens your vision. It makes you alert, strategic, and relentless. You stop wasting energy on what-ifs and start pouring it into what is. You begin to operate with clarity and precision because you're no longer running, you're confronting. You're no longer avoiding, you're attacking the problem directly. The same applies to anger. Anger, when left uncontrolled, turns inward and becomes bitterness, resentment, and even depression. Or it turns outward in self, sabotage and destruction. But when anger is understood, when it's owned without being suppressed, it becomes one of the most powerful motivators. Anger tells you that something is wrong, something is unjust, something must change. Instead of punching walls or pointing fingers, the disciplined individual lets that anger fuel the work. He uses it in the gym, in the business, in the mission. That fire in your chest can either burn you alive or become the engine that drives you forward. And sadness, what most people try hardest to escape, is one of the deepest indicators of meaning. You don't feel sadness about things you don't care about. You don't grieve things that didn't matter. That sadness is a sign that you still have passion, that you still love, that something inside you is still alive. Most try to silence that sadness with distraction, but if you sit with it long enough and you don't run, it starts to speak. It tells you what you value, what you've lost, and what you must rebuild. That emotional depth becomes the soil for growth. Many of the strongest people you'll ever meet have been through deep sadness not because they stayed there, but because they climbed out of it. You have to rewire the way you interpret emotions. Society tells you that negative feelings are signs of weakness, that they should be hidden, masked, or denied. But the truth is, your emotions are signals from your subconscious, and your subconscious is powerful beyond measure. Ignoring those signals is like driving a car with warning lights flashing and pretending everything is fine. Eventually, the vehicle breaks down. You are no different. But if you become emotionally intelligent, if you start observing and directing your feelings instead of drowning in them, you gain leverage over yourself. You become a master of your state, and that mastery leads to power in every area of life. This doesn't mean you become emotionless. It means you become emotionally precise. You feel fully, but you don't react blindly. You process deeply, but you move deliberately. You become someone who can sit in chaos and still execute, someone who feels the fear, feels the pressure, feels the sadness, but moves anyway. That is emotional power. That is what separates those who rise from those who crumble, and that power can't be bought, taught, or given. It has to be earned in the moments where you choose to sit with discomfort instead of run from it. Earned when you use that discomfort to build, to train, to learn, to create. The truth is, everyone feels these negative emotions. No one is exempt. But the winners, those who rise, those who change their lives and dominate their environments, they feel it and use it. They channel it into their discipline. They turn their rage into intensity, their anxiety into alertness, their sadness into insight, and their fear into precision. They become warriors, not because they don't feel, but because they feel more than anyone else and still move forward. Emotionally armed, mentally sharp, and absolutely unstoppable, the most powerful conversations you will ever have are not with other people, they are with yourself. Your internal dialogue, the constant stream of thoughts running through your mind, is either your greatest asset or your most dangerous liability. Most people don't even realize it's there. It becomes background noise, unnoticed and unchallenged, but shaping every decision, every emotion, and every belief. If that voice is filled with doubt, criticism, fear, or hesitation, then no matter how skilled, how talented, or how ambitious you are, you will sabotage yourself before you ever get the chance to succeed. It doesn't matter how much potential you have if the script running in your head keeps telling you, "I'm not enough, this isn't for me," or "I always fail." That voice in your head was not born there. It was installed. It was shaped by your environment, your experiences, your upbringing, your failures, your mistakes, and the opinions of other people. From childhood, you were told what you could or couldn't do, who you were allowed to become, what you were capable of. And unless you become fully conscious of that programming, you carry it with you into adulthood, you continue to operate based on outdated, self-limiting beliefs that were never yours to begin with. That is why reprogramming your internal dialogue is not just helpful, it is essential. Every single day, your subconscious mind listens to everything you say to yourself. It records it, it believes it, it acts on it. So if you constantly repeat things like, "I'm tired," "I can't do this," "I always mess things up," or "I'm just not lucky," you are reinforcing a mental identity of weakness and failure, and your actions will always align with that identity. Your mind hates conflict. It wants congruence. If you tell it you're a loser, it will make sure your behavior proves that statement right. But if you tell it you are powerful, focused, resilient, and worthy, it will begin to shift, slowly at first. But eventually, that shift will cascade through every part of your life. This is not about lying to yourself. It's about choosing a new truth, a truth that empowers instead of paralyzes, a truth that challenges the fear and replaces it with certainty. You don't need to repeat empty affirmations. You need to build a new language, a language of belief, strength, and command. When you change your words, you change your thoughts. When you change your thoughts, you change your identity. And when your identity shifts, your entire life transforms. Start by observing. Pay attention to what you say to yourself when you fail. What's your first thought when you make a mistake? Do you call yourself stupid? Do you spiral into shame? Or do you say, that was a lesson, I'm learning, I'll adapt? Because that difference in language is the difference between growth and stagnation. Most people aren't failing because of their circumstances. They're failing because of the way they speak to themselves about their circumstances. And it's not just about failure. It's also about preparation. Before a big challenge, how do you talk to yourself? Do you say, I hope this works? Or do you say, I will make this work? Do you enter situations with a defeated tone or with a mindset of dominance? Because what you say to yourself before the battle determines how you fight. Winners walk in saying, I've got this, I was built for this, I will win or I will learn, but I will not lose. That language becomes their armor. It hardens their mindset and prepares them to act with certainty under pressure. You must also become aware of subtle self-sabotage. Thoughts like, this always happens to me, I never get a break, nothing ever goes right, sound harmless, but they are poison. They create a story of victimhood, and your brain will find ways to make that story come true. You start expecting failure. You look for rejection, you anticipate disappointment, and life gives you exactly what you focus on. The way out of this cycle is to consciously rewrite the script. Replace this always happens to me with this time I'm doing things differently. Replace I never win. With I'm learning how to win, replace I'm not good enough with I'm growing stronger every day. Language is power. It's the most powerful weapon in your arsenal because it controls the narrative, and the narrative controls your decisions. You can either let your mind speak to you based on fear, doubt, and past trauma, or you can train it to speak from clarity, power, and possibility. This takes practice. You won't flip the switch overnight. But every time you catch yourself in negative self-talk and replace it with something stronger, you are rewiring your brain. You are reshaping your identity. You are taking control of your destiny one sentence at a time. Every successful person, every top performer, every champion you admire has mastered this. They don't let their inner dialogue bully them. They don't allow weakness to dominate their thoughts. They speak with intent, with vision, with fire. Not because they're pretending, but because they've built a language that supports who they are becoming. They've realized that mindset is not just about what you think. It's about what you say, especially when no one is listening. You don't need permission to win. You don't need validation. You don't need someone to approve your goals, your vision, or your hunger. What you need is a decision so firm, so unshakable, that no external resistance can touch it. The reason most people never rise, never dominate, never even start is because they're still waiting. Waiting for someone to say, you're ready. Waiting for circumstances to line up. Waiting for signs. Waiting for applause before they've even done the work. But success doesn't come to those who wait. It comes to those who decide that waiting is no longer an option. Decision is the first step toward mastery. The second you decide that losing is no longer acceptable, that failure is only temporary, that average is an insult to who you are, that is the moment your entire world begins to shift. But most people don't make real decisions. They hope, they dabble. They flirt with ambition, then run back to comfort the moment things get uncomfortable. A true decision is backed by action, and consistent action backed by decision becomes identity. That identity becomes momentum. And once momentum kicks in, the impossible begins to feel inevitable. Think about the people you admire. The athletes, the entrepreneurs, the creators, the warriors, they weren't born with a map. They didn't start with all the answers. They weren't voted most likely to succeed. What they did have was a decision, a deep internal yes that no one could shake. And when that kind of decision is made, really made, nothing can stop it. Not rejection, not doubt, not poverty. Not criticism, not fear. The people who change the world are not the ones who are the most talented. They're the ones who decided to stop negotiating with mediocrity. Too many people live their lives like beggars, begging the world to notice them, begging people to believe in them, begging for the opportunity, begging for motivation. But winners never beg. They build, they create. They declare when they don't see a door, they make one. When no one offers them a seat at the table, they build a new table. That kind of fire comes from decision, not permission, and you either have it or you don't, and if you don't, it's not because you weren't born with it, it's because you haven't yet chosen it. This is the truth no one wants to hear. Most people are addicted to approval. They need to be liked, supported, understood. But the path to greatness is a lonely road. There will be long stretches where no one claps for you, no one checks in, no one believes in you. That's not a sign to quit. That's a test of your decision, a test of your hunger. Do you need the world to believe in you first, or can you believe in yourself so fully that the world has no choice but to catch up? Because when your decision is made from the inside, you no longer seek validation from the outside. You move with force, with certainty, with conviction, and that energy is impossible to ignore. When you operate from decision, everything changes. You stop entertaining weak thoughts. You stop negotiating with laziness. You stop getting distracted by things that don't serve your mission. You stop being reactive and start becoming intentional. Every move becomes strategic. Every setback becomes fuel. Every failure becomes data. You develop a focus so sharp that people don't even recognize you anymore. And they shouldn't, because the version of you that was waiting, hoping, wondering, that version died the moment you decided to win. Understand this. Decision is not about feelings. It's not about inspiration. It's not about whether you're in the mood. Real decisions are made in silence, in private, with no one watching. It's when you look at your life and say, enough is enough. I refuse to live like this any longer. It's when you stop making excuses, stop blaming others, stop tolerating weakness, and you rise. Not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. That moment, when it comes from deep in your core, is the most powerful moment of your life. Because after that, nothing is ever the same again. The world doesn't owe you success. It doesn't care how hard your life has been. It doesn't care how many times you've been knocked down. It doesn't care about your excuses, your fears, your regrets. What it responds to is decision. When you decide to show up relentlessly, when you decide to outwork, outlast, outthink, and believe everyone around you, the world begins to move. Not right away, not without resistance, but eventually, because the world cannot ignore a person who refuses to be ignored. Everything you want, your goals, your freedom, your greatness, is sitting on the other side of a decision. But that decision must be made fully, not halfway, not when it's convenient, not only when it feels good. It has to be final, non-negotiable burn, the boat's level commitment. That kind of decision requires sacrifice. It means saying no to things that most people say yes to. It means walking away from comfort, from validation, from ease. But the reward is beyond imagination, not just the result, but the person you become in the process. Decision reshapes your identity. It forges character. It builds mental armor. It clears confusion. It sharpens purpose. When you operate from decision, you no longer wake up wondering what to do. You already know. You no longer waste time debating your next step. You just take it. The fog clears, the hesitation fades, the noise gets quieter, and all that's left is the mission. The reason you wake up every day with fire in your gut and steel in your spine.